Hi everybody, Dr. Daniel Roney again. This video, the second part in our series on how to heal, is going to really key in and dissect what I call the method to the madness. Meaning, in the first video, we talked heavily about the mindset, the approach, the allopathic approach versus this functional medicine approach of finding the causes and working hard to fix the mechanisms that will allow you to heal. Okay, so over the years, like I talked about in the first video, I've studied healthcare. I've worked in hospitals. I've worked in rehab centers. I understand the medical concept and the medical approach, and I also understand there's a ton of pros to that. However, when it comes to chronic fatigue and chronic pain, as we talked about in the first video, we lead the world, right? We have the most chronic fatigue, chronic pain, etc., pretty much statistically in the world. And the rates are the highest, etc. So when it comes down to understanding how to heal, how to get your body better, we have to know a couple things. We have to know what areas of the body are breaking down, okay? We have to know how to test properly to make sure with each individual we identify those areas. And then we have to have a plan in order to heal those areas so you get better. Collectively, if a lot of those areas that are broken down start to function better, your body will start to function better. You will have more optimal function at a cellular level. And at the end of the day, it comes down to this. If your cells are healing faster than they're breaking down, right, you're going to exude health and you're going to heal. If your cells are breaking down faster than they are healing, you're degenerating. You're basically at a cellular level decaying or dying. And it goes like this. It's either a slow process or a very rapid process, depending on how many things are going on. So, quick point is it's not a one cause, one cure approach here. Meaning, it's not this one thing that's messing up in most of you that's causing all these problems. It's a myriad of different systems and functions in your body that have broken down that's creating the chronic fatigue, chronic pain. Heck, you could have fatigue in your body, and there could be 6 different causes to fatigue. And so that mindset, if all of those areas are not identified and addressed, the fatigue more than likely will continue to happen, right? So with this, what we're going to talk about, number one, is the mindset as well. And that is, there has to be a plan, right? Even before a plan, there has to be a vision. What's the vision? Well, in my case, my vision is to try to learn as much as I can to help people like yourself watching this video heal, because I know you're not getting it, okay? And that's the number one vision. All right, how can I do my job the best of my ability to give people information so that they can heal? I understand that this is complex, so you may need somebody like me to kind of navigate you through the process. I understand that, but not everybody, right? So the first objective in the vision is to learn, study, and give you the right approach so you can heal, okay? Then when you have this vision, then there has to be this plan. And then the plan has to have action steps and strategies. And to keep it as simple as possible, if that approach is delivered in any aspect of life, for example, if you're coaching a football, baseball team, or any type of sports team, you have a job and you're approaching it that way, you're going to be successful more times than not. And that's the objective as well. I don't want to just get 1 out of every 2 people better, or 1 out of every 3, or 1 out of every 4. I want to get 99%, 95%, whatever it is. I want to get the majority of the people that walk through our office better. And the only way to do that is to have this vision, plan, action steps, and so forth. And that's what this is going to get into. More dissection of the method to the madness. Okay? So let's talk about this first and foremost. So chronic pain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, autoimmune conditions, chronic headaches, however you want to define the chronic symptoms that somebody in this chronic fatigue, chronic pain world had, these are kind of the areas that identify those. The metabolic cases and causes, okay? So to keep it simple, your system, what they call metabolic system, is not functioning well, okay? So let me go through, and I did this on the first video, but I want to also go through each of the areas that we found over the years that have broken down, if you will, or started to malfunction, that are going to cause a myriad of symptoms that you have in your body. And again, the mindset is, unless each of those areas are identified and then corrected, you really don't have a great chance, a predictable chance of getting better, okay? And then we're going to talk about the testing. What tests are relevant that aren't done in a lot of times in the allopathic approach. And then we're going to answer the what, when, why, how long, how much, which is really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, okay? So here are some of the areas of the body that will start to break down, what tests are relevant, and then we'll take it from there, okay? So one of the areas of the body called methylation, or one of the processes, I should say, of the body called methylation, starts to become malfunctioned, if you will. And that's the ability to use vitamins like your B vitamins, B12 and B9 and things like that, utilize them properly to allow proper function at a cellular level. I'll keep it as simple as that. So methylation, there's a problem, and not to get into it too deeply, with gene expression. And there's a gene called the MTHFR gene and the COMP gene and things like that that start to express themselves. And when they express themselves, to keep it, or polymorph they call it, then you're not able to utilize certain vitamins and minerals, etc., to go through certain processes which will allow your body to function well. So methylation, the one thing we look at for methylation defects is something called homocysteine and something called methylmalonic acid. So with these chronic fatigue, chronic pain patients, environmental stimuli like poor eating habits and toxins and chemicals and stress, etc., are going to cause these genes to polymorph, and methylation is going to become an issue in a lot of patients. So that's one, though, that's often overlooked, and it's actually a new concept, relatively speaking, new in the whole chronic fatigue, chronic pain world. But methylation is certainly something we want to look at, and the labs to do it are homocysteine and methylmalonic acid. Now, anybody can do these labs, but then it's knowing what to do about each of these. That is the real key. That's where I say the rubber meets the road. Autoimmune conditions, okay. If you have chronic pain and chronic fatigue, almost guaranteed, you know, you can never use never, always guaranteed, right? Almost guaranteed you have an autoimmune condition. And basically what that means is your immune system is cranked so high or overreacting so much, it's now attacking your own tissue and creating chronic inflammation. It's almost like a flu-like mechanism. Not that you have the flu, but if your immune system is really, really high, as if you have the flu, right? It's overworking. You're going to be very, very tired because it's going to impede the ability of the body at the cellular level to make ATP, which is energy. And it's also going to create copious amounts of inflammation in your body. So you're in pain in areas that you're like, wow, I'm in pain head to toe, elbows, wrists, knees, joints, muscle pain, etc. So think of the time that you had the flu. It may not be that severe, right? So there's the flu way up here, and then there's nothing. You may be somewhere in there as far as your immune system overreacting, creating this flu-like mechanism. So autoimmune conditions are a nucleus of the patients as far as the cause of the patients that I see. So we can do T-cell, B-cell testing, which is breaking it down. They're called interleukins, 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, etc. We could do something called a CD4 to CD8 ratio test. We could test specific antibodies, etc., in order to identify if you actually have an autoimmune condition. Literature, right? Research. 1 in every 2 people now are said to have an autoimmune condition in America. It was, say 25, 30, 40 years ago, 1 in 75, 1 in 100 in certain publications. It's down to 1 in every 2. The main reason we're exposed to so much quote-unquote crap these days, whether it's in our food supply or environmental toxins, chemicals, we're stressed extremely high, which promotes this inflammatory response. We could have gut issues, something called leaky gut, which is very real, very, very researched, right? It used to be theory, now it's real. So a lot of these different things that weren't really existing years ago now are existing. That's causing our immune systems to overwork. So that's the autoimmune part. Gut health, probably one of the most important areas of the body that has to be working well in order for you to function well. And if you have gas and bloating and IBS and constipation and diarrhea and all these different symptoms, the likelihood that your gut is malfunctioning is extremely high. You could have infections in the gut. You could have this thing called leaky gut. You could have sensitivities to certain foods, etc. And so all those things can be tested, but what I tell patients is the research is so clear that almost all of these exist in a chronic pain, chronic fatigue patients. We may start working on them without even having the testing done because we know the tests come back positive many, many times. So I talk to the individual patient about spending the money on those tests and try to save them a couple bucks if we know that the gut is probably having some of these issues based on the research and their symptoms. We just start working on it. So cleaning up the gut is a big, big deal. And then how to clean up the gut. That's a whole other ballgame. So we'll get to that. Infections / increase in toxins or heavy metals, things like that. If you have chronic infections in your body, whether it's chronic yeast overgrowth or chronic UTIs or chronic viral infections, or you have parasitic infections or what have you, these infections are going to cause the immune system to overreact because they're always present. So your immune system is going to always be overworking, trying to fight these infections. That's going to contribute as one of many what I call fuels to the fire to your inflammatory response. So if we're talking again about this inflammatory response, we have to understand what's driving it up based on what the research shows, right? Poor gut health, leaky gut, infections, stress, blood sugar imbalances, hormonal shifts, increase in toxins and chemicals. All these things are going to drive them up. So getting back to the method to the madness, if we understand them and then can clean them up, your immune system fire is going to go way down, which means your inflammatory response is also going to go way down. Again, I have way more information and other videos on this, but just giving you an insight to the method to the madness. So infections, elevated toxins, heavy metals are all going to create this immune inflammatory response. So we have to know how to test for them. Stool ecologies, there can be infectious disease testing, heavy metal testing, etc. And again, the things that I'm mentioning, ladies and gentlemen, so far are routinely not done in the allopathic approach, just so you know. So I always use this term, you can't fix what you don't find, right? So keep it as simple as that. Blood sugar, okay, this is a biggie. Blood sugar, elevated blood sugar, you're going to get fatigue after meals, you're going to crave sweets, maybe increase urination, you're going to get weight gain, especially around the midsection, etc. Low blood sugar is going to be, if you don't eat, you get moody and irritable and jittery and shaky and things like that. Elevated and reduced or low blood sugar creates major physiological dysfunction in your body. It's more than just symptoms. It's a big deal. It'll shift your hormones, it'll cause inflammation, etc. So blood sugar can be tested, insulin testing, hemoglobin A1C testing, your glucose testing, etc. can all be tested to identify blood sugar issues. But again, that's fairly easy to identify even in the allopathic world. It's what to do about it, okay? Because studies clearly show, research clearly shows, the understanding of biochemistry and physiology shows that those blood sugar issues can be reversed if the right things are done, okay? So hold that thought. Adrenals. Your adrenals are your stress glands, okay? Your adrenals will react to chronic stress. Now, whether that's emotional, like finances and family life and, you know, etc., jobs, your job, all those are emotional stressors. But when you have inflammation and pain and fatigue and blood sugar imbalances, they're called biological stressors that stress the adrenals the same way as emotional stressors will. So most of our patients, by the time they come see me, have adrenal malfunction and usually low adrenal function. So the #1 way to test this is saliva testing and testing your cortisol and your DHEA via saliva. In the allopathic world, they test blood, and blood is very insensitive. What I mean by that is if somebody's suspected of having a cortisol issue, a lot of times it could be, if it's pathological, something called Cushing's or Addison's disease, or maybe they have an adrenal tumor promoting a copious amount of adrenal or cortisol. Those big deviations, right, will get picked up on blood work. But the functional deviations, because the blood work is so insensitive, will not. So it can pick up large deviations, but not the functional deviations, okay? So saliva is up to 200 times more sensitive of a cortisol test. So this is somebody who, you know, may have read about the adrenals or not even aware of them, but trouble sleeping, either difficulty getting or staying asleep. They have afternoon fatigue, maybe dizziness when standing because their blood pressure goes down. They may have you know, low blood glucose. They get irritable between meals and moody and jittery, etc. Weak nails. You could have inability or a response in the morning where it's hard to get up and get moving. You're slow in the morning, even if you have good sleep. Weight gain with stress, heavy perspiration with stress, etc. Headaches with stress. All these different symptoms are a sign that the adrenals are not working. Well, if you go to your medical doctor, allopathic doctor, and they say, well, okay, we'll test your blood cortisol, and it comes back normal, they basically dismiss the fact that you have adrenal problems because they're not aware that the sensitivity is very, very low, okay? So saliva, according to the research, and even clinically, we see it, if those symptoms exist, your adrenals are almost definitely a problem. So doing the right test is critical, okay? And that's often overlooked. The thyroid, I have a website, orangecountythyroid.com. I have video after video on thyroid function because, I'll give you my opinion, it's probably the #1 misdiagnosed, mistreated condition out there, okay? Typically, the labs that are done are about 2, TSH and T4. Another 7 to 9 should be done, so a total of 9 to 11 labs. And the thyroid, to keep it simple, has causes, meaning it's not primary. Most of the time, 90-95% of the time, your thyroid's not malfunctioning just because. There's causes, like you have an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's attacking the thyroid. And if that autoimmune condition is not dealt with properly, the Pac-Man continues to attack. You continually have thyroid inflammation, you can get nodules and goiters, and then you could have chronic inflammation and pain as a result. Not only that, your thyroid then will continue to be attacked, lose T4 consistently, and then you'll need more and more meds, or the meds just aren't regulating it, you're still having all the symptoms, etc. So Hashimoto's is a big cause, hypopituitary function, inability to convert T4 to T3, high thyroid binding globulins low, reverse T3 elevated due to a cortisol response, etc. So all these different causes will create thyroid malfunction, and they're almost always overlooked, right? They're not tested properly, and they're not what I would call addressed properly, okay? So biggies there. Hormonal imbalances. Hormonal imbalances, and then just go back to the thyroid real quick. TSH, T4, T3, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, T3 uptake, antibody testing like TPO, TSI, antithyroid globulin. Those are all the things that need to be tested routinely in order to identify properly the cause of your thyroid problem, okay? And when I tell you TSH and T4 are the standards even in the endocrinology world, that's what you're getting. So a lot of times these thyroid problems are missed. Again, sorry about that. Hormonal imbalances, coming back to those, there's often causes to these hormonal imbalances that aren't primary, right? There could be something called primary hypogonadism, but what we found is the hormones begin to become imbalanced because of thyroid malfunction and adrenal malfunction and autoimmunity and things like that. So we could either give, administer, or another doctor could administer hormone replacement therapy, right? And try to balance those hormones. But if there's 4 other causes related to hormone imbalance and those causes aren't directly addressed, then you can only do so much with the hormone replacement therapy, all right? And that's a big one too, and I do talk about that. There's a video on AskDrDanielRoney.com. If you go to new patient link on that website, click on that. That will bring you to a page that has 6 or 7 different videos on it. One of them is called The Systematic Solution to a Symptom-Free Life. I definitely highly recommend you watching that one. That will really tie all this together, okay? All right, so anemia is another one that's very, very often overlooked. And from a testing standpoint, anemia, red blood cell, hematocrit, hemoglobin, MCV, MCHV, iron, ferritin, they all have to be tested in order to figure out what the cause of the anemia is. So there's iron deficiency anemia, anemia of chronic inflammation, there's pernicious anemia, B12 and folate anemia. They're all caused by something a little bit different. So we have to identify what the cause is, as opposed to just say, oh, you have anemia. And then once we find the cause, we can work on the mechanisms to change the fact that you have anemia, okay? So anemia is a big one because the number one cause or symptom, is fatigue, okay? Brain health. All right, brain health is a big one. And again, the mindset of this is the brain is only malfunctioning secondary to what's happening with your function below, right? Below the neck. So if you're having methylation issues and you have inflammation and gut health, your gut is the second brain, by the way, and you're having infections which are creating inflammation, you're not getting enough sugar to your brain, your adrenals are off, your thyroid's off, your hormones are imbalanced, you're anemic, which means you're not getting oxygen to the brain, etc. Your brain's going to not work well. You're going to have brain fog and memory issues and trouble with word recall, etc. Now, if all this goes on long enough, then the possibility that your cells degenerate is very, very high. And these are the main causes of dementia and Alzheimer's, according to the research that they're doing. However, most of my patients, it's just what I call a roadblock, meaning the sun's here, right? The clouds are here. The sun rays are not getting to the body, which means you're not functioning well. But if as far as the brain function, but if we can get those roadblocks out of the way and allow better glucose to the brain, better oxygen to the brain, less inflammation or what they call cytokines to the brain, etc., your brain's going to work better and function better. So whether it's depression or lack of motivation or brain fog or whatever it might be, those symptoms are often secondary to all of these different things going on in your body. And they've been able to show that consistently throughout the research. So, we can either give, in the medical world, Xanax or, Wellbutrin or certain SSI uptake inhibitors or dopamine, increased dopamine, antidepressants, etc. Or we can fix the causes and allow the brain to get what it needs, and then you hopefully don't need those. The brain is one where it's been studied endlessly, and they're starting to learn that it's not primary, it's secondary from all this, okay? So basically it's a little bit tough from a testing standpoint. We go by, we have a brain questionnaire that we give out. We go by symptoms, a neurological exam, and then you can test neurotransmitters and some other things, but the testing isn't as accurate. So we tend to go a lot by symptoms with the brain, okay? And then all of a sudden you get these things cleaned up, those symptoms start to go away. So the flow chart, okay, just quickly, you have these signs and symptoms: chronic fatigue, chronic pain, fibro, autoimmune, chronic headaches, etc., chronic stuff, right? We have to identify and understand that these areas are the main areas that aren't functioning well. Then we have to know what tests to do to identify them in each individual patient, okay? Once we have that, then here's where the real, like I said, the rubber meets the road. We have to then know what to do to help heal an autoimmune condition. We have to know what to do to heal gut health, right? We have to know the mechanisms to be addressed. And then we have to know when to do each one. Okay, now that might sound a little remedial, but let me say this. I'm going to use the gut as an example. We have a 5 R's program with gut health, right? The first R is to remove foods that are known to be inflammatory. The second R is to remove infections if present, okay? The third R is to replace, fourth R is to reinoculate, and then the fifth R is to repair. So we want to get better probiotics, better digestive enzymes. We want to give things that help repair the mucosal lining. But here's the deal. If there's inflammation, which often causes this thing called leaky gut, and there's infections in the digestive system, it's going to be very hard to repair your leaky gut if the inflammation and the infections aren't gone first, right? So you can't just slap a bunch of supplements at somebody in no particular order without understanding that certain things have to be done before we can get to another thing. And that's part of the method to the madness that over the last 10 to 15 years I've been able to understand. And then we have to know okay, why are we doing that? Okay, not just the what, when, and why, but then we have to figure out, well, how long do you need this stuff for, right? How long do you need it? How much do you need, etc. And those are all things that have taken years and years and years to develop, to understand. And then going back to the what, I'll give you an example of, we use something called turmeric or curcumin and resveratrol to help decrease something called inflammatory proteins with these autoimmune cases or somebody that has high inflammation. The reality, though, is there's an amount and a concentration of these things that needs to be taken in order to get the desired outcome. But what's happening in the supplement world, and which is why the FDA is starting to crack down a little bit, is because you'll have these companies that will tout what the research shows. Oh, turmeric and curcumin and resveratrol can lower these inflammatory proteins, right? But what the companies are doing is putting out an inferior product that touts that it can bring this stuff down, bring those inflammatory proteins down, but give you an amount that doesn't correlate with what the research shows. So you're thinking you're getting what you need, but it's in a less amount and a less concentration and so forth. So they're charging you a lot of money for them, you see? So they're touting what the research shows and, hey, this can help with this and this, but they're giving you an inferior product. And so that leads you down a bad road because you're thinking, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and you're not getting enough, and it's not the right stuff, and the concentration and the biochemistry and how it's put together is not even helping you much. So the what becomes really important with understanding some of these companies and how they formulate things and what they're doing that you trust. And the reality is we've done this for so many years. We know these companies because we know these companies are doing well, their formulas are well researched, and they work clinically. So, again, the what, when, why, how long, how much, that's where the rubber meets the road and really is a big part of this, because you can understand a lot of this stuff, but then you don't know what to take, how much to take, how long to take it, etc. So one of the concepts that we implement is a test, treat, retest mentality. If we're going to apply a what, when, why, how long, how much, we have to know it's working. So the accountability with this is in the retesting, right? We get a baseline, we put you on a protocol, the retests start to come out where they're looking really, really good. Your symptoms are improving. Now, if we can get through a lot of these areas, what starts to happen at a cellular level, your body starts to heal. And that's when you start healing multiple systems of your body, which will allow these multiple symptoms to start reducing, and you're going to achieve more optimal level of health. What that means at the end, we shouldn't need near as many medications or near as many supplements. Our objective is less is better. If we can get you to this part where your body's functioning the way it's supposed to function, digestive health is good, inflammation is down, methylation is good, blood sugar is balanced, adrenals, thyroid, etc., all performing much, much better. There's a high percentage, right, that the outcome is going to be predictable for each and every patient. That's the bottom line. That's the method to the madness that I've studied over the years that I want to accomplish with every patient. If you leave no rock unturned, you have a great shot of getting multiple people better. Not just 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4. We want most people, if not every person that walks into my office, to get better. Now, realistically, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but certainly we want to put a plan together that's going to allow most people to get better. And that's the objective. So hopefully this gave you a little more insight into the method to the madness, okay? We'll see you back in the office for your second visit, which is going to have me go over specifically your plan and what we need to do specific to you and your symptoms and your issues, okay? Best of luck either way, and hopefully we'll see you soon.